Hey, this is Brooke, functional medicine dietitian specializing in fertility, and this is the Fertility Dietitian podcast, where I help you uncover the barriers that are preventing you from optimizing your fertility and teach you how to work with your body to finally take home a healthy baby. Each week, I will be diving into different topics on fertility and sharing my perspective on physiology, metabolic health, nutrition, and lifestyle approaches that have helped hundreds of couples get pregnant even after years of heartache. My goal is to empower you with the knowledge you need to take back control of your fertility. Happy listening. If you are doing all of the right things but still not getting pregnant, this is something that I really encourage you to pay very close attention to this topic. We're talking about blood sugar, insulin, and how it influences equality and overall reproduction. This is a barrier that I see overlooked very, very often because of how it is tested, if it's even tested for at all. Your blood sugar and insulin are influencing every step of the fertility process. Not just whether you ovulate, not just how your hormones are being produced, which it absolutely influences both of those areas as well, but it influences every single step. Egg development, fertilization, implantation, early pregnancy. And the tricky part is that this can be off long before it ever shows up on standard labs. Really, we see up to even a decade of insulin issues before it's showing up on your standard fasting glucose or even hemoglobin A1C type test. So today I want to update a conversation that we've had on the podcast before about blood sugar and take it a step deeper. I'll link the initial episode too in case you're curious about going back to that. But we're talking about insulin and your ovaries because this is one of the biggest missing pieces that I see in an unexplained infertility picture. And of course, in other diagnoses too, such as PCOS. It's misunderstood. It's not tested for very well, and we can do way better in management and outcomes, therefore, with getting that healthy baby in your arms. So let's talk first about just why blood sugar matters for fertility. We know that fertility is very energy intensive. Your body needs a steady, reliable fuel source to support maturing a healthy egg, support ovulation, to support building that uterine lining, and to support early embryo development once implantation does take place. And that fuel source, or part of that fuel source, is glucose. So if your blood sugar is constantly spiking and crashing, your body reads that as stress. And when your body feels stressed, it does not prioritize reproduction. It's going to prioritize survival. And this is where we start to see irregular cycles, maybe symptomatic cycles, trouble with ovulating, lower chances of implantation as well. And I want to be clear here. We don't always see irregular cycle patterns, but that is a very common side effect of issues with signaling with insulin and blood sugar. So even if you're having regular cycles, this is still a conversation that we want to be having and definitely an area we want to be diving deeper into if you are having trouble with conceiving. Even something as simple as your blood sugar being over 120 2 hours after a meal can start to matter here. And most women are never told this, okay? There's also a very important cortisol connection that we have to talk about. So let's talk about the other side of this, low blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops too low, your body actually is going to be releasing cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone, but it also helps bring your blood sugar back up by breaking down stored energy. That's a very normal, important process for survival. But if you're relying on cortisol all day to keep your energy up, that's a problem because now your body is getting the signal. This environment is not stable. It is not safe. And cortisol does something else that matters for fertility. It actually increases insulin resistance. So now we are in a loop. blood sugar crashes, cortisol rises, insulin resistance increases, blood sugar becomes more unstable. This is one of the biggest reasons I do not recommend over restricting carbohydrates, especially for women trying to conceive. Carbs are not the enemy. They are your body's preferred fuel source. So the goal is not low carb. The goal is stable blood sugar. Okay. And how we stabilize blood sugar is by, first and foremost, making sure we're balancing our meals with carbs and protein and fat and eating consistently throughout the day to make sure that blood sugar is not dropping too low. And we don't want a all carb heavy meal because that can make that blood sugar really spike. And then you'll have that crash also. And then again, you're on the loop of spiking and crashing, which is not helpful. Okay, so let's take it a little bit deeper and talk more about insulin and your ovaries. So this is a piece that changes how we look at your labs. When insulin stays elevated over time, your muscle and fat cells actually start to ignore the signal. This is insulin resistant. So I should probably take it one step back even further. And in case we are not aware that insulin is a hormone, and it is a hormone that acts like a key to unlock our cells and allow glucose inside. So in insulin resistance, that key is not fitting right, and it's not opening up that cell to allow the glucose in. Okay, so blood sugar stays high and insulin keeps getting secreted from the pancreas. Both are inflammatory signals. Okay, so high blood sugar and high insulin happens with insulin resistance. Your pancreas responds, again, by making more insulin to try to get the same job done. So we don't want the pancreas to have to create more insulin to get the blood sugar cleared, right? That is more inflammation. Here's what most people don't know. Your ovaries do not turn down that signal. Okay, so your muscle and fat tissues start to ignore the insulin, but your ovaries do not. They keep listening to insulin at full volume, and that is really important. It matters because insulin directly stimulates the ovaries to produce testosterone. So now we have higher insulin, higher testosterone, disrupted egg maturation. And this is one of the root causes or root drivers, triggers, if you will, of PCOS. But it also shows up in women who have a normal weight, who have quote unquote normal glucose, who have been told that their labs look fine and they might not have cysts on their ovaries either. Okay, so just as a reminder, we need 2 of 3 criteria to be diagnosed with PCOS. Those 3 criteria being cysts on your ovaries, elevated androgens, and or irregular cycles. So if you're having regular cycles and you don't have cysts on your ovaries, you might have elevated androgens from the insulin, but you technically don't meet that PCOS diagnosis, and nobody is probably going to be looking at insulin. Okay, so if your labs look fine and your period is coming consistently, you still need to look deeper at ovulation and ovulation quality, ovulation timing, because ovulation can swing within a week time frame and you might still be getting a fairly consistent period. But if ovulation is swinging that much, your cycle is also irregular. So that's something to pay attention to also, and impacting how long your luteal phase is, which is really a sign of egg quality as well as progesterone quality there. So if you're struggling to get pregnant, this is definitely a pattern. All of this is something to think about. And this is why we have to look beyond glucose. So you're probably wondering what to test, how to look into this more. If you're trying to conceive, if you do have irregular cycles, or even if you have regular cycles, or if you have a diagnosis of PCOS, you have to look at fasting insulin. So everybody should be looking at fasting insulin, especially if you have PCOS or irregular cycles, or if you're just simply trying to conceive. We want to look at insulin, not just fasting glucose, but fasting insulin, not just A1C, but fasting insulin also. Okay, because that's where we pick up the insulin signaling issues way before our fasting glucose or our A1C are becoming out of range. As a general guideline, a fasting insulin below 10 is a really good place to aim for. Closer to 5 is even more supportive of fertility, because this is where we start to see more stable signaling at the ovarian level. And blood sugar issues can start years before diagnosis. I want to make that so clear. I know I've said it a few times, but a decade before we're actually seeing a diagnosis, we can have background insulin signaling and therefore blood sugar issues that are impacting egg quality, ovulation, and in time to conception. Another piece I want you to understand is timing. Blood sugar dysregulation can be happening at the cellular level for years before it's showing up in that fasting glucose or that A1C. So if you have been told that everything looks normal, but your cycles are maybe a little off, or you're just not getting pregnant, we cannot stop there. We have to look deeper. And we also know that women with recurrent pregnancy loss are about 3 times more likely to have insulin resistance as well. So even if you have been pregnant, but you are not staying pregnant, we also want to think about insulin resistance. And many cases of gestational diabetes actually start out as undiagnosed insulin resistance before pregnancy even begins. So you're actually helping prevent additional complications during pregnancy by looking at this before conception too. So this is not just about getting pregnant, but this is about staying pregnant and having a healthy pregnancy, as it always is here at the Fertility Dietitian. That is the main focus, is having a healthy pregnancy, a healthy baby, not just getting pregnant. So let's talk a little bit about what this looks like day to day. What can you do to stabilize your blood sugar? When your blood sugar is unstable, you might notice things like energy crashes, maybe sugar cravings, mood swings, trouble sleeping, irregular cycles. This is your body constantly trying to stabilize itself, and it's creating stress. But when we stabilize blood sugar, we can actually reduce that stress load. And that is going to automatically support hormone balance and egg quality, inflammation levels, progesterone production. So here are a few simple ways to start. You don't need a whole overhaul of everything overnight, but start here. Eat a protein-rich breakfast. Aim for 30 to 40 grams of protein within an hour of waking, okay? You want to prevent that blood sugar from crashing, prevent that cortisol from picking up the slack. We want to live off of food and not off of cortisol, okay? You want to build balanced meals throughout the day that are including carbs and protein and fat every time you eat. Increasing your fiber. So the carbs that you're choosing, ideally making them fiber rich, can be very supportive too. Think berries and root vegetables and leafy greens. Cruciferous veggies are actually going to be more fiber rich than our leafies, which also stabilizes blood sugar too. Eat consistently. Don't skip meals or rely on caffeine, okay? We don't want to go 5 or 6 hours without eating. Ideally aiming for that every 4 hours or 3 to 4 hour time window can be really helpful for blood sugar stability. Strength training a few times a week is also really helpful for insulin sensitivity. Movement after a meal, going on a quick walk is also very helpful too. You don't have to do all of these all at once, but try to work them in because they should be simple, but they are very, very powerful also. Blood sugar and insulin should not be side conversations in fertility. They are so foundational. And if no one has walked you through this before, you're not behind. You just have a missing piece. Your body is very responsive though. So when you give it the right inputs, things can change really drastically, really in a short period of time. And so if this is something that you want help actually applying for your body, not just learning about, this is exactly what we do inside my Master Your Fertility program. Okay, you do not have to keep guessing, and you absolutely do not have to figure this out alone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Fertility Dietitian podcast. If you enjoyed it, please leave a review to let me know what topics you want more of or less of. If you want to keep learning, subscribe at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Check out my website for more info on my private coaching program, Master Your Fertility, or my membership community, Fertility Blueprint. And don't forget my digital store. Come say hi on YouTube and Instagram. See you in the next episode.